Hignett corner, beyond Bent. Janssen! And Blackburn Rovers are 18 minutes away from a Premiership return.
As far as Stewart, just outside the penalty area, flips it central for David Dunn. David Dunn equalises. It just had to be. Dax corner and it goes. Glance towards goal, and Rovers have taken the lead. And Charlie Mulgrew has scored his 14th of the season. It may well be the goal that sends Rovers back into the Championship.
Hello, welcome to our special live event here on the Rovers Chat channel. We're hoping we're going to be joined by some neutrals tonight as well from different clubs around the EFL. I've got some special guests joining me tonight. I am Rovers Analytics, Joe Harvey. I've got Andy Watson starting with me tonight, who obviously hosts the Stats Show on Rovers Chat and is a friend and obviously loves the data just as much as I do. So thanks for joining me, Andy. How are you doing today?
Really good, yeah. I've been getting my data head on all day today, fighting the good fight, I guess, on Twitter with some Rovers fans, which has been really enjoyable, actually. It's really good to see different opinions coming through about expected goals, about Mowbray's performance, about performances versus results, and all that sort of stuff. So a healthy debate, I think.
Yeah, good stuff. And I think at the moment, it's a bit of a weird window that we've got coming up at the end of this season. Lots of rumours that many clubs are going to be struggling financially. And I think that's the inspiration behind this show tonight. We've got quite a few of you joining us. Nice to see the viewing figures healthy and high. Say hello to us in the comments. We'll try and get through to them all. We'll show them on screen. Any donations as well are obviously much appreciated. The way the show's going to work tonight, we've got 3 guests. Andy is our first guest. We're going to be going over some different positions, and we're going to be picking out some players, mainly from League One, some from League Two. We're going to look through the data. We're going to discuss their values and how far we think they can go. And I'm sure Andy will try and work in some 5 yards plugs as and where he can. So before we do start, I'll just remind you that we are sponsored by Blue Rose Capital and, of course, sponsored by 6yardsout.com.
The Rovers Chat YouTube channel is proudly sponsored by 6yardsout.com. They've got retro football from every era with mugs, phone cases and much more. They also have plenty of Rovers goods, including apparel with the famous 94-95 season and this season's kit. Check them out using the link in the description below.
The luscious tones of Ryan Hildred there on our advert, who I know sadly couldn't join us tonight, but he's doing great stuff with the other live content. Andy, you're looking at centre-backs for us. Hopefully I've got that right and I've not messed up straight away.
That's right.
First, we're going to be talking about Jack Tucker, and I'll let you go.
Yeah, this is, I guess, my position when I played football, which I haven't done for quite some time now. So it's one that is close to my heart, and one, unfortunately, for Blackburn fans. I know we're joined by many other fans as well this evening, but it's something of a black hole for us at the moment. Everyone who plays in that position for Blackburn seems to get either injured or loses their form. So it's one that I have an interest in and try and keep an eye across the season for some interesting players. And Jack Tucker is one that's come to my attention. He's a Gillingham centre-back, only 21 years old, only really broke into the team under Steve Evans last season. But I put a lot of stock in minutes played. Obviously, Daniel Ayala has fallen short of that for Blackburn this season, and that's been a bone of contention with the players that we brought in. But Jack Tucker has played a hell of a lot of football for someone who's 21 this season in League One. So he's obviously a firm favourite of Evans, and also I know that a lot of Gillingham fans are big fans of him as well. And looking at that, I've knocked this up today from Scout data. Just took some metrics that I was quite interested in for a central defender. So starting from the bottom, those ones in blue, those bars in blue, with the defensive duels, the number of duels per 90, and this is then benchmarked against the rest of the League One central defenders. So the higher the bar, the higher up Jack Tucker ranks in those particular metrics. And you can see he ranks very highly in the number of defensive duels, which is fine, but that just might be because Gillingham engage in a lot more defensive duels than other teams. But he actually has a very high win percentage as well, puts him above halfway in the League One defenders. But his particular strength, you can see there in duels, is his aerial duel win percentage, which ranks him close to the top 10% in League One. But that's not the only thing you can do. I'd say he's very committed. He's getting in front of shots and getting interceptions in as well. So he's quite a front foot defender. He's getting himself in the way of things and stopping attacks, which is what you want first and foremost from his central defender. But on that extra string to his bow as well, he can pass the ball. His long pass accuracy is exceptionally high, again, relative to the other League One central defenders. And also he's got very high accurate final third passes. So this isn't just passes that he's knocking to his central back teammates, it's getting it forward. However, I will caveat both of those by looking at that accurate forward passes line, third one down.
Yeah.
He doesn't actually perform as many as many of his other League One central defensive compatriots. So I think we can take those really high numbers with a pinch of salt. Obviously, he can do that, but because he's not doing as many, it's a smaller sample size. So we'll take that into account. But certainly someone I think that a lot of people will be having a look at. And I know you've got some expert opinions as well, Joe.
Yeah, I was just going to say, sometimes it's important to look at the data. Sometimes it's important to take away the data and talk about some of the context. We've got some expert opinions on all the players we're going to talk about tonight, and loads of different people have given their thoughts, from fanalytics accounts to supporters to people involved at clubs. So age 21 with over 60 League One appearances to his name already. Tucker is decent in the air, positionally smart, can use both feet, and is very composed for his age. Premier League interest well documented, but a move to the Championship makes a lot of sense first. That's from a Gillingham supporter. Despite being in a direct Gillingham side, is a good passer of the ball, which isn't used much. Defensively sound as well, can recover well if someone gets beyond him. Good at defending his box if sat deep, and wins his duels. Right-footed, but plays on the left side for Gillingham, so strong on either side as well. 21 years old, so a lot of room for growth, and seems mature for his age. And that's from an Ipswich Town analyst online. So Andy, just a final one on Tucker. Do you think he's ready for the Championship?
I think he could play in the Championship. He'd probably maybe be a third central defender for a lot of the top half teams. Would probably go straight into quite a few bottom half Championship teams. So certainly someone I think is going to generate a lot of interest in the Championship in this window.
Bro, we'll move on to your second, what we're calling them, spots, shall we say? And up next, you've got Jacob Greaves.
Yes, someone who probably will be playing Championship football next season, but with his current club, Hull City. Again, I think he's 21, he might be 22 now, but very, very young. And had a good loan spell. I think it was in Stevenage last season, and that got him spot on for this League One campaign for Hull. Probably would have struggled if he'd have stayed in the Championship to get as much game time as he has done. But again, another one who's played a heck of a lot of minutes, and that Hull defence has done a very good job for Grant McCann this season. So he's going to have a lot of, again, admirers, but I would imagine this is someone who probably will stay with Hull. Depends on the offers that they might get in. But you can see down at the bottom of the graph there, those aerial dual win percentage and defensive dual win percentages are in the top 10% of central defenders in League One. And I guess that's, it's not him in a nutshell because he can do other things, but, you want your central defenders to be winning those aerial duels and defensive duels. And although I sometimes disagree with the way that 𝐻𝐿 categorises these things, it tells the truth most of the time. So you can see that from Jacob Greaves. And also what's interesting when you go on his best actions on 𝐻𝐿, which is something that a lot of people in the profession do, it's dominated by long range passes. So that's, and the particular pass that Jacob Greaves likes to play is from the left, switching it all the way over to the right wing back or the right side of the attacker, and he's been very successful at doing that and changing the point of attack for Hull City, which is something that they've built on and done really well with. So again, left-footed this one. So whilst Tucker was right-footed but could play on the left, Jacob Greaves is that unicorn that everyone's always searching for, the left-footed central defender that seems to solve a hell of a lot of problems.
Has your opinion shifted on the left-sided left centre-back, right-sided right centre-back debate that we had last summer?
Not overly. I mean, the fact that more and more people are kind of smart people as well are telling me that the angles are better for that left-footed left central defender, is probably shifting me slightly. But Jack Tucker's been very successful playing left centre-back, right-footed, moving it back to Rovers. Taylor Harwood-Bellis has done a good job left centre-back, and he's right-footed. So it's not the be-all and end-all for me.
We've got a quick quote on Jacob Greaves. Massive fan of Greaves last year at Cheltenham.
It was
Left-footed,
Cheltenham, not Stevenage.
ball-carrying centre-back. Excellent passing range and shows composure of a much more experienced EFL centre-back. That's from Dave Cohen, EFL pundit. So, Andy, we'll move on to your third and final suggestion. I'll let you introduce him.
Yeah, this one is probably one that's well known to people who are listening to Not the Top 20 podcast. This is Rob Atkinson from Oxford United. I think he's gaining a lot of interest, probably the most in League One at the moment. Just the way he plays the game, he's so composed with the ball at his feet. He will move into midfield at any given opportunity, which is the way that I personally would like to see more centre-backs play, and certainly what Mowbray would like from his centre-backs at Blackburn as well. I think he's possibly already getting offers above what Blackburn can offer. But again, just because he can play doesn't mean that he can't defend. And I've just been watching him in preparation for the show, and he did a fantastic block in recently, and then shows great instincts. I think it was against Ipswich to get back on the line and clear one off the line as well. So this is a defender, but one that can play out. He came through Fulham's academy, I think, and had a great he went back to Eastleigh. He went to Eastleigh, and I think they refer to him as the Vanarama Van Dijk in that division. But I think of him more of a Harry Maguire sort of type. He can carry the ball up to the edge of an opposition defence, but can also defend really well himself. Not as stocky as Maguire, but tall and athletic.
Yeah, and I suppose the big question when we're talking about these players, obviously this is the best League One talent show, and there'll be a few League Two players as well. The question that will always be asked is, can these players do it at a higher level? Does the data look good because it's at League One? I mean, we played in League One in 2017, 2018. So do you think it's going to be something that perhaps we can look into and say, well, how do these central defenders compare to perhaps Darragh Lenihan, Charlie Mulgrew, Derek Williams of that season?
Yeah, absolutely. I did a study last year about the gaps between the leagues and how big the gaps were in terms of kind of trying to bridge the ability gap. League One, League Two was pretty negligible, really. There was a big gap, and it's widening between League One and the Championship, just with the amount of money that's sloshing around in the Championship because of the Premier League. So it's kind of cycling down, but the gap between the Championship and the Premier League was the biggest, as you would expect. But I would expect, a lot of these, if you're playing very well at the top of League One, then I think that you could play well in the Championship as well, especially if you're playing for a team that is, let's just say, possibly pushing for playoffs at most. You'd probably be looking for a bit more if you were right at the top of the league, just because you've got that extra funds from parachute payments probably, or a rich benefactor, or just a massive club. So it's something that definitely needs probably even more study than what it gets at the moment, whether team players can translate from League One into the Championship, and at what level do you want to be playing at in League One to be able to do that. I think Ben Whiteman's done okay at Preston so far. He was one I think that we looked at a lot, but he's not set the world alight. Obviously Preston are struggling themselves. So
Yeah, I'll just go through a few comments before I let you go. Thanks to Liam for joining us. I know you've had some input on the show as well tonight. I love this. I've been working always to finally have a day off when we get this vid. I love that, Callum. Thank you so much for joining us. Scotty, one of our regulars. Good evening to you too. And the same with Michael Pearson. The Penrith Posse, most people won't get that one, but I really love that reference. We went and raided a Cardiff stream the other day, which is great. Some comments here. Sean Raggett has apparently had a decent season with Portsmouth, 27 years old, decent shout in my eyes. Yes, love that. And again here, more suggestions coming through, and we love to see that. Bring your suggestions in and we'll happily show them on screen and let everybody get an idea of some of the options that might be available for Championship clubs as we head into the summer. Andy, I'll let you answer this one quickly before I let you go. Anything on this one from Kieran Webber? Yeah,
it's someone that's I think has had a bit of a dip this season. I think ITFC Analytics has talked about that. But before that, I certainly would be very interested in seeing how he would go up at Championship level. I suspect quite well. I think he's one of those who would probably look better in a higher league than he does even in League One. So certainly someone I think the Rovers step up keeping an eye on. I'm sure they'll keep an eye on all of these. And the one thing I will say before I do leave is that we're doing this because the domestic market is going to be so much more important now because of Brexit and because of GBEs, and not being able to bring people in from Europe as easily as we could do. And the only other thing is that, contract situations, I think we're going to be looking at, and everyone in the Championship is going to be looking at free agents a lot more. So a lot of these players might just be out of reach just because they're not out of the contract or they're not close to the end of their contract. So that's something that really we need to be looking at in depth when you're looking at recruitment this summer.
100%, and I'm sure between us, Andy, will be getting loads of content out there for Rovers fans in particular. But I think the document that was done last year and that is likely to be redone this year probably has a wider scope than just Rovers fans as well. But there's plenty more to come. This is just the first of many different shows we're going to put together. So thanks for being our first guest tonight, Andy. I'm sure it's not the last time that me and you will be discussing Rovers transfer business in 2021. So thanks for joining us. Thanks for giving us your thoughts. Thanks to everyone in the comments so far. I'm just going to cut away for a second and bring in our next guest. Thanks very much, Andy. See you later, mate.
Thanks, Joe. See you, mate.
Okie dokie. So, as smooth as a baby's bum. I tell you what, I'm doing the technical and the hosting tonight, and I'm pretty happy with that transition there. I'm joined by Adam from CUFC Analytics. Thanks for joining us, mate. First time on the stream. How's your day been?
It's been good. Cold outside. Football orientated as usual, like every weekend.
Frill. So Andy has been going over the centre backs, and I'm pretty sure that if I remember correctly, it's been a hectic day planning this, that you're going to be looking at the fullbacks for us. So I'll let you lead me. Who are we going for first?
So we're going to go for Kyle Noyle first. Maybe a bit more of a biased decision, but there we are.
Brilliant. Off you go, mate.
So, he's come through the West Ham youth setup. He's had a couple of failed loan spells at Dundee United and Wigan, but then he sort of found his feet at Swindon. So he's heading into his fourth season at League Two now. The 5'7" defender. He's 24 years old, got a lean body type, and he sort of found his feet and found his home at Cambridge United so far. I definitely think he could be an asset to a League One side that is a possession-dominated team that look to attack a lot of the time. Very, very good in the attacking phases of play. Defensively, he is good. I've got a couple of key stats. He doesn't get dribbled past very often, 0.2 times dribbled past a game. So he's not getting beaten very often. But then again, his tackles aren't amazingly high compared to some of the other options I've got lined up. He's only getting 1.1 tackle a game and 0.7 interceptions a game. But where he lacks in his defensive, he is definitely making up for in the attacking. If you watch him a lot, he'll be overlapping and underlapping, dribbling. He's not shy of holding on to the ball, which is a massive positive of his game. In terms of cost-wise, his contract expires this year at the end of the season. And, I mean, if the U's go up, then no doubt they'll be looking to hold on to him. He's definitely a player that they need to be getting signed on for next season. But due to the COVID pandemic and obviously the team's not wanting to be splashing loads of money at the moment, I think that you could probably get him out of Cambridge for 150,000 to perhaps 350,000, somewhere within them ranges. But once again, because his contract's coming to an end, that might change it a little bit. In terms of how he could adapt to a higher standard of football, I think he definitely can in a more possession-based setup, but I'm not sure so much whether he could do it in a team where there's a lot of defending, perhaps a low block side. I'm not sure if he could quite do it as well, because he's not the biggest player, but he's certainly not afraid of getting his body involved, which we've seen all season. He's part of the sixth best defence in the league, so as much as I'm saying that he's not the best defender in the world, he is clearly doing something right. If not, they wouldn't be the sixth best defence in the league. He has been involved in 41 games, I believe, this season, so it's not like Mark Bonner doesn't like him. He clearly sees something in him, and I definitely think he could do a job at a higher league for a team that looks after the ball a lot of the game.
So what do you think the scope is career-wise? Do you think it could be a League One, then Championship and beyond? What do you think the glass ceiling is there?
Well, if you look at the way he plays, he's very, very similar to like Kiko Femenia of Watford. I watch a lot of them as well. So I can see very, very lots of similarities between their play styles. You know, they're both quite small. They're both very good at attacking and perhaps not always there defensively, not the best in the air, but they do, you know, they overload the ball side on the right a lot more of the time. You know, they can definitely look to get up on the right because of his attacking skill set. But then again, it does lack in the defensive at times. So I think he could go to a League One. He's probably going to go up with Cambridge. I'd like to see them extend his contract. Then I suppose he can prove himself there. Then who knows? I'm in a possession-based setup where they're attacking. Like I keep saying, I definitely think that he could do a job at League One, and then who knows from there.
So up next for you, who are we looking at?
We're going to look at Luther Wilding.
Well, there's a picture of him with a Goal of the Month award. I'll let you take the reins.
Yeah, so he's been he's sort of done it the hard way. He was just playing Sunday League up until under 16, I believe, where he got picked up by Notts County. He'd had a couple of unsuccessful trials at Notts Forest and Villa, but sort of got in at Notts County, went out on loan at Grantham, and then got released and went to Nuneaton, where he had a really good season in National League North under the manager Dino. I'm going to probably get this wrong, Marmaria. Don't know how you say it, but he had a very good season under him before he moved to Stevenage, where his manager took him with him, and he sort of found his feet there. 23 years old, 5'8", very well built. He's a big physical asset as well as a technical asset to Stevenage. Good part of a really good defensive structure that they have going on there. They're the third best defence in the league, but with that, the third worst attack as well. So that sort of says everything you need to know about Stevenage. But yeah, he's in terms of adapting to a high league standard, he's gone from strength to strength. So he's been at Grantham, then he's moved on to the National League North, and then from there he's adapted to League Two. So there's no reason why, in my opinion, why he couldn't go on and adapt again to a higher league standard of play. He's very versatile as well. He can play as sort of a defensive right winger as well as a centre half at times, which has been shown this season. In regards to how much he might cost, I did see something when I was looking into him that Arsenal wanted to sign him a couple of seasons back when he was 21 for £1 million. I'm not sure how much truth there is in that. That was under the Unai Emery spell, so that might tell you everything you need to know about that transfer. But yeah, his contract ends this season as well, and once again, due to the COVID pandemic, that is definitely going to massively affect how much he might cost Stevenage, especially if they're in any financial trouble. But you could look to probably get him out of Stevenage for 200 to 400,000, I'm sure. But there we go. We're not 100% sure with the current climate we're in.
We've got a quote on this one. Versatility as would make him a real asset to most squads in lower leagues right now. Could potentially be growing into a very good player. That's from Edward Walker, EFL pundit. And I'll just quickly move on to the third and final fullback that we're going to look at, and that's George Tanner, if I've got that right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Real.
Yeah. So George Tanner's had a brilliant season at right back for Carlisle. He's part of them. He's come through the Manchester United academy. He went out on loan to Morecambe, then he got brought back, and then he got sent to Salford, where he wasn't really getting any games at all due to injuries, I believe. But yeah, he's the youngest of my three options. He's 21 years old. All three of these are right backs, I should say. Yeah, he's got 1 year left on his contract, opposed to finishing in the summer like the others. But he can, unlike the other two, I see Wilding as a bit more of a defensive option. I see Noyle as the attacking option. Tanner can do both. He can operate up the full right-hand side, as the quote will tell you in a minute. He can take up that whole right-hand side himself. Once again, part of the fourth best attack. So that, he's clearly having some sort of impact there. I'll give you a couple of stats. He's notching up 2.9 tackles per 90, 1.9 interceptions per 90, and also getting a key pass. I know they're only small stats in the grand scheme of things, but it sort of tells you that he can do the defensive side of the game as well as the attacking side, which sort of makes him very versatile into what team he could slot into the league.
Well, and it's important these days, isn't it, with the way that the fullback role has developed recently, and the modern fullback. And did you say he's 21 years old?
21 years old, yeah.
Yeah, so obviously the glass ceiling perhaps on that one might be a little bit higher. Yeah. But yeah, do you think he'll move this year?
I mean, I think people rate him highly, judging from what I've seen from other people. But the thing with him, like I said, about compared to the others, is I wrote a little bit of an overview as well in my head, and I think he's the best one out of the three because he's the youngest. He's got arguably another year left in League Two, which I think could do him the world of good, staying there for one more year and really pushing on, because he's only had one full season, which is this season. He got cut short at Morecambe, so one more year, and then he could definitely move on to League One without a doubt, in my opinion. But I think he could do with that little bit more time just to cement that place and really put a mark on League Two from right back.
We've got expert opinion on George Tanner, a player who displays all the qualities you could want from a modern fullback. Tanner is very good at occupying the entire right flank, and could be an excellent wide crossing option from advanced positions. Easily one of the brightest fullback prospects in the lower leagues. And that's from Edward Walker, EFL pundit. Before I let you go, Adam, I'm just going to go through some of the comments that we've had in. Yeah, me and 𝑃𝒂𝒂𝒕 had been having a chat earlier today about some of the Gillingham players, and I know his thoughts on that one. Liam, listen, there was some rumours that I was related to Stuart circulating on the forums. I can confirm they're not true. But yeah, he's moved on, and I'm sure Rovers will look to replace. But no, I can confirm as well that me and Andy have not been approached, unfortunately. And we've got Naive Steve. Callum Gribben will come good somewhere. Ex-Man United. Last heard to be at Barrow on loan from Sheffield United. And El Scotty just thanking Andy for his input. Thanks very much for your comments. Adam, thanks very much for joining us and giving your thoughts on the fullbacks. I'm going to attempt to use my technical wizardry again now to swiftly swap over to our next guest without any issue. Let's see how it goes. But for now, thanks very much for joining us, mate. Have a great evening.
Cheers. Thanks for having me on.
See you later.
Bye.
Oh, it's worked. Brilliant stuff. Hello. We are back with our third guest of the programme, and I'm pretty impressed with our timings so far. We've been live for exactly 30 minutes, so I'm really happy with that. I'm joined by James from Report Posh. Thanks very much for joining me, mate. How's your day been?
Yeah, it's been good. Thanks for having me on. And I like to ramble, so with those timings, I'm sure I'll do my best not to throw you off.
Throw it off, do it. Andy was nice and prompt and got through his, and Adam was great. So I'm really looking forward to it. It's been really well received, and the viewing figures are through the roof. We're really happy with that. And thanks for your input. Liam, yeah, Tanner can play left back as well. I believe that's great. Do keep getting your comments in, and we'll get them on the screen for you. We'll be here for at least another half hour. Up next, we've got the big guns. It's time to talk strikers. Let's just get the graphic up so that everybody can see and you can flick through, and we'll put a little timestamp on it as well. So I will let you introduce your first striker that you want to talk about, mate.
Yeah, so looking mainly at League One, I picked one out of League Two. Before I get onto it, League One was really, really hard to nail it down, because I know you said keep it down to 3. So I just want to give some honourable mentions to likes of Callum Lang, Niall Ennis, Dion Charles, Colby Bishop, Ryan Longman. Loads of guys could have picked. Try to avoid Peterborough, Sunderland and Hull players, because there's a chance, or a strong chance, 2 of those teams will go up. So I try to maybe think a bit outside the box rather than going for the obvious Charlie White, Johnson Clark, Harris, Srika, Dembele. So first player I have for you is Jerry Yates, currently at Blackpool. You got the picture of him there from when he was on loan at Swindon last year. Has stepped up seamlessly from Swindon to in League Two to Blackpool. Was on loan there from Rotherham, and Rotherham sold him in the summer. I think he was around about the 300,000 mark. I think 400,000, but he's going to go for a lot more than that this summer. I'm pretty sure. 24 years old, 5'9", Blackpool did a good job of tying him down to a long-term contract till 2023. First thing that strikes you with Yates is his intelligence and his movement. Really intelligent movement, run the channels really well, runs off the back of defenders really well. Can also link play both facing his own goal and facing the opposition goal. So he can create chances for others, but he can also, receive it back to goal, especially if you play him to feet. Can turn, carry the ball, got really nice technique. And he's got the pace as well, got good pace to match that intelligent movement to run in behind stretch teams. He can play on the left as well. I prefer him centrally personally. I think his best position is centrally. You're thinking about question marks because he's a player going to be stepping up to the Championship, I believe, this summer, either with Blackpool or if not, I imagine you're talking about £1 to £2 million to sign him, depending on how many clubs go in for him. The question mark with him is, although he's quite a strong player, he's not the tallest player. So I've seen his physicality mentioned, and I've seen it mentioned that he can't play up front alone. Now, I've seen him play on his own up front in a 4-2-3-1 for Blackpool, and he does really well because he can play back to goal and he can stretch play that way. But he really, if he's stepping up, he needs the right system around him. He's not going to be a player that you can play as a lone striker in a direct system. If you've got a direct system, he'll need to play in a 2, and that might limit his options slightly. If he's in a run, you need to be hitting him to feet, or you need to be using his movement to stretch play and create space for others and bring others into play that way. So that would be my only real big question mark about him stepping up. But he's a player who's just been absolutely on fire this year, and looks set to kick on even further.
You've sent me over some graphs. Should I flick through those for you? We could pick out Yates in there.
Yeah, sure. Go through them. So I tried to highlight the players we're going to talk about in red, and then some of the players in blue who could have easily been mentioned. So I spoke there about his ability to create chances for others. You can see rates highly for expected assists. If you want to keep going through, again, I spoke about perhaps not being the best aerially. So for a player who's 5'9", his aerial dual success rate isn't bad. But if he's stepping up with bigger, stronger defenders in the Championship, you expect that to drop, and he's not going to be a player you're going to play direct long balls into. There we go. There's his defensive actions. Again, his dual success rate is above average, and that's partly due to his speed and his strengths. And he's just below average for successful defensive actions per 90, playing in a good team at Blackpool. That's understandable. And then here we see his goal scoring as well. So pretty good goal scoring, just under 0.4 goals per 90, outperforming his non-penalty XG. This is of 0.3. But as we said before, he's more than just a goal scorer. He does bring others into play. And you can see there, this is his shot volume and efficiency. So you can see he takes an average amount of shots, but one thing he does do really well because of his movement, because of his speed, gets into really good shooting positions. And you can see that in his XG per shot there, which is well above average, up with the best players in the league in terms of getting into really good positions to take his shots.
In the spirit of keeping this show neutral and not all about Rovers, are there any clubs in the Championship that you think you can see him moving to, or that perhaps, whether they can afford it or not, he would suit playing for?
Yeah, so I imagine he'll go to, I don't think he'll go to one of the big hitters in the Championship. I imagine he'll probably be around about that mid-table, lower table. And as I said, ideally he's going to play in a team that plays 2 up front. So, for example, if Armstrong were to leave Rovers, I think that he would be a really good replacement for Armstrong because of his pace, because of his movement, because of his intelligent play. If you're playing him in a 1 up front, you're not going to say send him to Cardiff or Barnsley because he's not going to be that physical aerial presence. If he's playing as a lone striker, he needs to be in a system whereby the build-up's going to be through the thirds and they're going to hit his feet and he can bring players in that way, or he can run in behind. So again, getting that matchup stylistically is going to be really important. I think that's maybe why he didn't quite work out at Rotherham, because Rotherham, high pressing, physical team, direct team, maybe not the sort of striker that they need, and maybe that's why it didn't work out for him there.
Well, I remember watching him. Oh God, I want to say maybe 2016, 2017 for the first time, and not being particularly impressed. But obviously, for those that do remember him from that time, you've got to remember the age factor. and obviously develop much more as a player now. Some interesting points here being made in the comments. Now, Steve, thanks for joining us again. Remember the better Shrewsbury players that went to Ipswich the same season Rovers got promoted? They did all fail, and Ipswich have yet to recover. That's true. Beware false prophets from League One. True, but I'll see that and raise you a Bradley Dack and say that I think sometimes those profits are worth taking the risk on. But yeah, true. Ipswich are yet to recover, but maybe that's down to Paul Lambert, who we've all got our own feelings on here at Rovers. We'll move on. Oh, sorry, no, actually, we've got a quick quote on Jerry Yates. Jerry Yates, I believe, has worked very well in having a strike partner next to him. He looks very intelligent, playing off the last man when the opportunity arises. That's from Edward Walker, EFL pundit. So we'll move on to your next striker. Who's up next, mate?
Yeah, so most of the players I picked out are 24 and under. But I've picked out a player who's in his peak years for a striker, really, or come to the end of his peak years for a striker, Joe Pigott. So 27 years old, 6 foot, currently playing for ASC Wimbledon there. The reason I've picked out Pigott is because the other players I've got are going to be in the contract going into next season. Pigott's a player who is available on a free transfer in the summer. So there's a good chance that a championship team might look at him and sign him because you don't have to pay a fee. I mean, if you're looking at last season, you might have thought that might happen with the likes of Fraser, Madison, Nondoué, perhaps. It doesn't always work that way, but I think Pigott's a pretty good pickup for a championship side who need a striker on a free. He's been absolutely talismanic in a relegation fighting team. So he's been playing in a low scoring team, don't create a huge amount of chances, and he has really put them on his back and given them a really good chance of survival this season. Scored 15 goals. So although some of his numbers don't stand out hugely, if you did them as, say, a ratio compared to other players in similar position teams, they would stack up really, really well. And I think he's one who perhaps in a better team could shine even more. Got decent technique and control, fairly good passing range, and he links play really well. He's fairly mobile. Although he's not got that searing pace, he's not gonna sprint past his man, but he's got enough pace to be able to run in behind. Can score a variety of goals as well, especially ball at feet. But he can also score with his head. And really importantly, I think he's a combative, hard-working player, and I think that gets you a long way when you're stepping up in terms of bringing that energy and that power to that hard-working nature to teams. If you're looking at negatives, I said he lacks explosive pace, and I say his off-ball movement isn't brilliant. He's probably a better player getting it to feet and playing the ball around. He's decent in the air, but perhaps last season at Wimbledon he struggled when he was used as an out-and-out target man and just had long balls hit up to him. He is competitive in the air, but he needs more than that. He's not say Vadine Oliver in League One or Kiefer Moore in the Championship, where he's going to dominate the.
Oh, I think we may have potentially lost you there. So let's just have a see here. We'll go through these graphs whilst we've lost James's connection. So as you can see, Pigott here, just under average and around average on creativity. I think we've got James back. Brill. I'm just on creativity. I'll let you take back the reins from there.
Perfect. Yeah. So I think I was just going through some of the negatives: lack of explosive pace, fairly average movement, and I picked out some of his shot locations as well. So he does shoot at bodies a lot, and I've noticed his shots hit legs a lot as well. But I think again that could perhaps be the team that he's playing for, and not having the most creative team around him to create those big chances for him. But yeah, again, a player on a free transfer, I think he's going to be attracting interest from a lot of championship teams. Or alternatively, I'd expect him to move to a team at the very top of League One next year.
Bro, we've got a quick bit of opinion. Let me just flick through and find it. I've got so many different graphics to deal with today. Sorry, do you want me to quickly? I think we might have lost James again there. Just having a quick connection issue. at this end. I'll go through some comments. Ben Godfrey was at Shrewsbury. Look at him now. Yeah, certainly was. That's just adding to our debate before about the League One situation, as I think James tries to find some better Wi-Fi in the house. As a Peterborough fan, do you think Johnson Clark-Harris will stay, even if they're promoted? I'll let you answer that one.
It's a hard one to answer that. There's definitely been interest with him. Bournemouth have been rumoured to be interested in him. I think for the money that's been quoted, if he were to leave, if they were to get that big £3-4 million off the sort of fees being quoted, I'd actually want Posh to go out and sign the next man I'm going to talk about, which is a nice little segue perhaps into Stephen Humphreys if we've got time to speak about him. Yeah. So there he is playing in his mask at Southend after suffered a really bad facial injury, broken nose, and had to come back and play in a mask. So before we get into the positives, I guess it makes sense to talk about the negatives. So the biggest question mark with Humphreys is injuries. He's missed significant playing time in the last 2 seasons. That was a bit of a freak incident, but he's had hamstring issues, he's had knee issues. Only 23. That is a concern, although that was a similar concern Peterborough had about Clark-Harris when he joined. 23 years old, 6'1", contract till 2022. I think you're talking somewhere between £500,000 and £1 million. Rochdale signed him last summer for $500,000. This guy's probably he can do a bit of everything. I love strikers like this. He's big, he's strong, good in the air, works hard for his team, decent pace, can run in behind. Not the quickest, but probably a little bit quicker than Piggott is. He's technically good. He links play really well. He's a high volume dribbler and a good dribbler. And he scores all sorts of goals. He can score free kicks, he can score curlers, he can score headers, he can smash him in from distance, he can hit them on the volley and score inside the box. He's just your all-round striker. Those injuries aside, looks ready-made player to step up into the Championship. And another one whereby he's been doing this at poor teams in terms of, he was at Southend last year, and when he was playing, did well, scored a high proportion of their goals. And then again this season at Rochdale when he has been fit, he's been a real talent man for them, and they look a far better team with Humphreys in it than they do without him in it. And I haven't even said that when we go into the grass, we'll see some of his numbers, even despite being in a team that's currently bottom of the table in League One, his numbers stack up really, really well compared to other strikers.
Let's have a quick look through them on Humphreys.
Yep, cool. So here we see, in terms of creativity, as I said, high volume dribbler, so creates chances for himself and others. His XA slightly below average, but still stands up, and I'd expect that to climb in a better team. I said about his aerial duels, Rochdale try and play out from the back, so they don't perhaps go as long as he doesn't have as many as some of the other players, like perhaps a Piggott or an Oliver in the league. But when he does compete, he is above average in the air and competitive in the air. Again, here we see his defensive numbers. So again, an above average defensive duel volume and around about average successful defensive actions. He's a hard working player in that side and could step into a Championship side that needs a strikers to press. And then again, I said about his goals and look at those non-penalty goals for a team that's bottom of the table. That's a really impressive to be, again, not including penalties, notching at 0.4 goals per game. And getting into those really good positions, so almost 0.4 non-penalty XG per game as well. And this is perhaps a question mark. So I said about him being able to score all sorts of goals. He shoots from everywhere, right? And that's why we see that really high shot volume. Only Anike takes more shots, but taking them from, compared to most strikers, his average shot is below average in terms of expected goals. So maybe if he's in a team that creates more, maybe that's something whereby he will need to rein in those shots from everywhere. And he spoke about at Southend having to basically dribble and just shoot from 30 yards to try and score. And he still has a bit of that mentality, perhaps. Maybe needs to improve that decision-making in the final third, stepping up.
Yeah, there's been, from a Rovers perspective, a lot of criticism of Adam Armstrong, who moved past 20 goals with his brace against Cardiff. He shoots from everywhere and shoots whenever he can, and some people don't like it, but that's how you get 20 goals as a player. Just a quick nod, as you said, to the league table. Rochdale, just for those who aren't well aware of the League One table, they have won 7 games all season, and his output compared to the team's output is still really impressive. And I think I saw quite a few comments saying, when we as a club were linked with Humphreys, about just looking at how many goals that player has scored. But this is where I think data can be quite important when you've got a player playing in a weak side. It all comes down to the fact that at every team in every league, if you're in that league, there's a player at each team that you'd take. There are 2 or 3 players at Wycombe who are bottom of the league that everybody would have in their team, all the way up to Norwich. So let's not take league position into account. Let's look at the data. So have we got one more, or is that all 3 of our strikers?
So you said about getting one from League 2 as well, which was a lot harder, because I think the 2 best young strikers in Max Watters and Elijah Adebayo went to the Championship already. Adebayo doing really well, Watters less so. But Adebayo was a player I actually wanted Posh to sign for about a year before he got that Championship move. And the player I've picked out is not dissimilar to him. So I picked out Josh Coyote, who, just like Jerry Yates was last year, on loan in League 2 at Carlisle from Rotherham, 6'3", 20 years old. Really interesting player. Even though he's 6'3", he's got good feet for a big man, if you want to use that expression, and he's really quick as well. So he'll take on players 1v1, and he can play on the wing, and he's played on both wings as well. He's a good finisher, and he's scored a lot of different goals as well. He's had some really acrobatic goals. But one thing I criticise perhaps his finishing is at times he can overcomplicate things and perhaps try a technique that's more complicated than the situation requires. But a big plus about him is he's capable of creating chances for both himself and others. He's got 0.17 XA per 90 this season, expected assists per 90. So he's creating a lot of chances through his dribbling, through his area ability, through his running in behind, through crossing, that for other players as well. The biggest negative perhaps is that he's still quite raw. So he's 20 years old, although he's 6'3", he needs to develop physically still. He's a very slim player. And when he does that, much like Adebayo did, who's a few years ahead of him, I think he can become even more dominant in the air, which we saw Adebayo do, and he won't get knocked around by big, stronger, physical defenders. And as with lots of players his age, needs to work on his decision making, which can let him down at times. But again, as a 20-year-old, that's something you'd expect. He's played in England youth teams. As a centre forward, he probably needs to get more shots off. 1.36 shots per game this season in League 2. When he's played up front, that's discounting his games on the wing. So you'd like to see him getting in those goal-scoring positions more. But he's a really interesting player. You don't see players like him very often, with his pace, with his size, with his technical ability, good in the air. Perhaps not stepping up to the Championship this season. Next season, sorry. I wouldn't be surprised if Rotherham do go down. They may stay up. If they do go down, I wouldn't be surprised to see him playing for them in League One, or perhaps playing for another League One team next season. Definitely think he could slot in at that level.
I will just quickly, because we've had 2 comments about him, one here and a second one here from Kieran Webber about Luke Jephcott. I'll let you just quickly give your thoughts on him and where you think he could end up.
Yeah, so I've got fairly strong opinions on Luke Jephcott. So I've seen him linked heavily with Championship sides. Number one question mark for me is that I do not think he can play up front on his own. So he needs to play in a 2, and he needs to have a striker who can occupy defenders alongside him, which is
so we need to sign Jephcott and Yates together then, and we'll be fine.
But again, would they play together? Like the thing with Jephcott is he's played with Ryan Hardy alongside him, and I think Hardy does a fantastic job for him. Look, Jephcott's intelligent mover, gets into great positions in the box, runs the channels really well. Needs to develop his whole game a little bit more. The big question mark I have with Jephcott is the goals that he scores. So if you go back and look at his goals, a lot of them are from having really good positions in the box. Then the ball breaks to partly because of bad defending. I mean, a lot of his goals as well come from bad goalkeeping. Now, he's done amazingly well to play and score goals at a young age as a teenager in League 2, step up to League 1 at 20 years old and score goals as well. But the challenge of this was to pick players that are gonna be ready to step up to the Championship this summer. And for me, some people think he is. Jephcott's not that player. And I think he's also being kept out of the team by 19-year-old Niall Ennis at Plymouth. I think he's 19 anyway. Now, Ennis...
just had a comment to that effect from Jonathan Secker as well. So a pretty good spot from Jonathan there. Well done.
Yeah, so Ennis is currently starting ahead of Jephcott in that team. And for me, if you ask me who was the bigger long-term prospect out of Ennis and Jephcott, I think it's Ennis.
Chris, just on this one, Chapman, despite the fact that a week or so ago we were told that we were going to be extending his contract, we're now being told that we won't be and that he's going to be available in the summer. Whether Shrewsbury can afford him and they'll take him, I don't know. I can imagine he might go to a promoted side or a side down at the bottom of the Championship, just because he's done so well on that loan spell. Again, injury's a problem there for him, but unfortunately he won't be staying with us despite what we first thought. So, James, thank you very much for joining us. I'll just quickly, because I forgot to do it, on Stephen Humphreys, we did have a few quotes through, and I just wanted to get it in because people did send in their thoughts, and I wanted to make sure they got in. So Stephen Humphreys has everything you want in a striker. He's clinical, he has strength and power in abundance. He also possesses good link-up play. Humphreys has all the attributes to make the step up to the Championship. Well-rounded striker, enough pace to get in behind, but has the ability to hold the ball up and link play. Feel he can play as a long striker or in a two. Only worry is his injury record, but for a fairly nominal fee, Championship clubs should be getting him. Thanks to Rochdale supporter and Liam Henshaw, EFL pundit, for sending those thoughts in to us. James, I'm going to let you go and say thank you very much for helping us out with the strikers. Don't go anywhere though, Rovers fans, because I'm going to bring this all back round to Rovers in a few moments' time and talk about a few final players. Namely, we'll be talking about Aaron Morley, Charlie Kirk and Joe Powell. So, James, I'm going to flick over to my we're doing technical things in the background video and let you leave us. Thanks very much for joining us and have a great evening, mate.
Brilliant. Thanks for having me on.
Okay, so it's just me, and all the glitz and glamour's gone as well, because I haven't got a graphic for just one person. It feels quite lonesome doing this on my own, so do get some comments in. Naive Steve, never have old strikers back. Santa Cruz a prime example. I assume that's in reference to Chris's comment here about bringing back Rhodes. And I agree, Liam. James was an excellent guest, and it was delightful insight. And yes, Liam, sorry I didn't manage to slip in the analysis that you have done on Humphreys, but I will stick it in for you now. If anybody wants to pause here and have a look through this, or if you head over to Liam's Twitter, you can check that out. And then we've got the same on Jerry Yates as well. Although he'll have to take some credit off me for the design on that one, but I know he's happy to do so. Okay, so we're going to move on, almost a bit like a main event. We're going to bring this back round to Rovers now, and we're going to talk about some players that perhaps Rovers have been linked with, some players that I think Rovers should sign in particular. So if there's any neutrals that aren't going to find much interest in that, thanks so much for joining us, and I appreciate if you want to go. If there's any Rovers fans that are looking for some insight into some potential Rovers options, then do stick around for me. Up first, I'm going to talk about this man, Charlie Kirk. So we've obviously just signed Harry Pickering from Crewe Alexandra, and he's joining us in the summer, having gone back on loan there. And he's a young fullback, but a fullback with lots of potential and a fullback we're really excited about bringing in. But his data has been looking great because he's been playing alongside Charlie Kirk on the left side. Charlie Kirk's a left winger. And as you can see here, I've compared Charlie's data with Ben Brereton. And I've highlighted in green the person that wins each data point. And as you can see, it's quite overwhelming, Kirk. Obviously, he's in League One, so his data is going to look pretty good. But if you actually look at the specifics, you can see that in some areas, there's quite huge discrepancies in the type of footballer we're looking at. For a left winger, Charlie Kirk has 5 goals this season, same as Ben Brereton, but 8 assists to Brereton's 2. Again, you know, bearing in mind he's playing in League One. A nice high dribble success percentage, 64%. Nice high crossing accuracy. If you don't know data that well, 43% for a crossing accuracy percentage is nice and high. Offensive duels won, 52, pretty high as well. Touches in the box, 3.93 per game. That's really great. You want your players in the box. Progressive runs and progressive passes are nice and high. Passes to the final third, key passing. Charlie Kirk is a really impressive player. He's only 23 years old. And the huge upside on this one is that Charlie Kirk has a £650,000 release clause, which means he's available quite cheap. And, of course, the main selling point for Charlie Kirk is his overwhelming relationship with Harry Pickering at left back. They've played together for some time. They've been really impressive. Pickering cuts inside him, cuts on the outside of him. They assist each other. And it is great to see. I would be interested to see if that partnership can work at championship level. But unlike perhaps Ben Brereton, who, as Naive Steve mentions here, cost us £8 million, it's a £600,000 risk that I think we should be willing to take. Jonathan, yes, the Kirk 650, but yeah, that release clause rumour is true. I've managed to find out for sure and spoken to a few people that is the case. So I'm really impressed by Kirk, but don't just take it from me. We've got a quote here from Gab Sutton, who's very kindly left his thoughts. Kirk likes to hold the width when the ball is in the middle third, but as play progresses, he'll close in on goal to shoot for himself or create for others. Lots of energy about him and has proven himself in the EFL's bottom 2 divisions consistently for the last 3 years. So I'd have no hesitation in backing him to step up to championship level. Kirk is a player that I really like. I think it's probably the most pragmatic signing that Rovers could make this summer. I'll be disappointed if we aren't even linked. I think that if you're looking at a cheap and sensible option, then Charlie Kirk should absolutely be the A-list target for Rovers. I know some people will talk about whether his ability at League One is good enough to step up to the Championship, and we've kind of had that debate a little bit tonight in the comments as well. But for me, Charlie Kirk is a really, really impressive player. Just to quickly reference the table, Crewe obviously down in 15th. They're not going to be coming up anytime soon. And with that release clause, I would expect Charlie Kirk to move on to another club. I think it'll be a championship team. I think he can do it. He's got loads of room to improve at just 23 years old. Okay, I'm going to move on to a midfielder now, and we're going to talk about another Rochdale player. We've already talked about Stephen Humphreys, but now we're going to talk about Aaron Morley. He's a player you might have heard me talk about on the Rovers Analytics account, or perhaps some other analytical pundits. He's been gaining quite a bit of praise from outside of Rochdale, perhaps some stick from within, not incredibly well adept defensively, but some of his data moving forward is quite impressive. Again, he's playing in League One, so the comparison to Lewis Travis is trivial and needs to be taken with a pinch of salt, and you've got to bear in mind. But again, in the individual numbers, there are some huge discrepancies, and I think as we head over to the summer, I'll perhaps compare these players with some of Rovers' players from the 2017-18 League One promotion campaign. As you can see, recoveries per 90 nice and high at 8.7. Passes to final third, more than double Lewis Travis in his game. Forward passes nice and high, crossing, assists, shots. He's just a very well-rounded midfielder, and he's only 21 years old. As I said, and as you can see with the league table, Rochdale right down at the bottom in 24th on 33 points. They're really struggling. They've got a couple of standout players in Humphreys and Morley, but the rest of the team is massively under what's needed at League One level, unfortunately for them. Don't just take my word for it, though. Morley is a curious midfielder who seems to get more praise outside of Rochdale than inside. Good passing range and energetic, maybe lacks the strength and defensive nous to anchor a midfield. It could be that he's got a little bit worse since MJ Williams left without really being replaced. So maybe inner side with a defensive midfielder next to him, he'd be good. That's from Gab Sutton, a young progressive midfielder which could easily step up into a better League One team. Likes to get on the ball and distribute, has a good delivery, and would be a real asset in a team who has strong defensive midfielders alongside. And as you can see, it's that comment about strong defensive midfielders with the likes of Lewis Travis and Bradley Johnson and Jacob Davenport and potentially even Tom Tribal at the club. I think we do need some more box-to-box attacking style central midfielders to assist. And at 21 years old, the glass ceiling is certainly nice and high for Morley to keep improving and impressing. I don't think it'd take you much more than £500,000 to bring him in. I probably agree with Liam. I think he'll probably get a League One move higher up the division. But I would definitely be happy if he did get a move into Rovers. I'm going to really quickly touch on this man here. It's Joe Powell. He's a player that I really like. He's at Burton Albion at the minute, as you can tell if you know your badges well. And he's just really impressive. If you want to liken him to a Rovers player, I would say he's quite like Joe Rothwell. He's very technical. His technical ability is, top 3 in the division. There are definitely issues. He doesn't start every week. A little bit like how Joe Rothwell's had issues with Rovers. But at such a young age, he's a really impressive player for me. Don't just take it from me. Joe's someone who could be a really good technical 10 or a more advanced 8, shown real improvements in his set-piece delivery this season. But last year, he was looking very good receiving on the half-turn and looking to break lines with his passing. I still have questions around his overall defensive output, but he's the best man in that Burton team for unlocking a defence. And I think that's really important for Rovers. We've obviously got John Buckley at the club, and Joe Rothwell's probably going to be here next year, but there's a contract issue there. But Joe Powell is a player I really like. He scored an absolute screamer yesterday for Burton. If you haven't seen it, check it out. Burton Analytics on Twitter has got a great video quote tweeted on his account if you want to go and have a little look at that one. So I'm just going to quickly overview everything that we've looked at so far. Thanks to James for these graphics. I don't know if he's stolen them or if they're his, but they're great. And that just gives you a quick idea of all the strikers in the League One. So we've got shot volume and efficiency here. Pause if you want to look at that one in more detail. We've got goal scoring. Again, have a little pause if you want to look at it in more detail. We've got defending here, aerial duels, and creativity there as well. You can start to see the kinds of names that are coming up more often than not. We've looked at central defenders. So we've got Tucker here, who we talked about at length from Gillingham. Atkinson, who's at Oxford United, but perhaps not somebody that Rovers could look to get. And Greaves, who's at Hull, who'll probably be playing Championship football next season either way. We looked at Stephen Humphreys, who's been linked with Rovers. You can pause this to have a little bit more detailed look at his abilities. And we also looked at Jerry Yates, who's been linked with Rovers as well. I've just talked about Aaron Morley, a player who I think would be good. We had a look at fullbacks in George Tanner, Luther Wilding, and of course we looked at strikers outside of Humphreys too and Yates. We looked at Joe Pigott, and we talked about a few League Two options as well. I do hope that you've enjoyed the show. It was a little bit hectic to pull together. We've managed to do it with however many different guests, and I do appreciate all the comments that we've had in. If there's anything else that anybody would like to see as we head towards the summer window, please let us know. We're going to be doing more live shows such as this one as we reach the summer window. We'll probably look at different divisions. We might do a European scouting session and we'll get different people in. I do hope that everybody has enjoyed. Before I do finish, I'll remind you of our sponsors and just thank everybody who did help out. Gab Sutton, Liam Henshaw, Ipswich Town Analysis, Oxford United Analytics on Twitter as well. Our guests, James and Adam, and of course, Andy Watson, who helped. I'm sure I've missed a few people, but this show was put together in the matter of a couple of days, and we've managed to put something together that I've really enjoyed producing. I hope you guys have enjoyed watching. We will be back. Prince Philip's funeral, of course, is currently left next weekend's fixture against Derby up in the air. It could be a Friday night fixture, it could be a different time on Saturday, or it could even be on Sunday. Once we know what's happening with that fixture, we will be doing a live watch-along. I don't have any details yet because we don't know what time the game's going to be or even what day. So we will see you when we see you. Thanks very much for joining me for the best talents of League One, summer 2021 window. I'll leave you with our outro and our sponsor message. Thanks very much, guys, and we will see you later.
The Rovers Chat YouTube channel is proudly sponsored by 6yardsout.com. They've got retro football from every era with mugs, phone cases and much more. They also have plenty of Rovers goods, including apparel with the famous 94-95 season and this season's kit. Check them out using the link in the description below.